Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Mem Zayin in Shavuos. As we near the end, Thursday, Mesher Mekasiyim, as we learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Sunnah Batzar V'Shivya. Says the Gemara from the top of the page, the third line, Hayu Shnei and Chashudin. The Mishnah said the other day that if the person who's supposed to make the Shvuah, like he's a motor b'miktsas, and he can't make a Shvuah because he's a liar, he's a known liar, and he's suspected of lying, so then we say that the Shvuah is put on the other person. The person who is demanding it, let's say, the claimant, the plaintiff who's asking for the money. So what happens though if they're both chashud hashvuah? Both the plaintiff and the defendant both chashud hashvuah. So meikar adin, the defendant is supposed to make the shvuah if he's motor b'miktsas. But we said we put on the plaintiff. The plaintiff is also a liar. So what do? So the Mishnah said, "Hayishnei and chashudin chazra shvuah m'kom." It goes back to its original place. Divrei Rav Yossi. Rav Meir says no, yachloku. In a case like that, neither one can make a shvuah, you split it. But there was some discrepancy. In our mission, we said, Rabbi Yossi said the shvuah goes back to its original place. We don't know what that means yet. We'll get to that in a minute, or in a few minutes. It goes back to its original place. Presumably that means to the person who was supposed to make the shvuah originally. And if he can't make it, he has to pay. We'll see. But Rav Meir said yachloku. However, there was a discrepancy. Who said what? Amalei, the fourth line on Mem Zayin of Alaf. Amalei Rav Nachman. Hechi Tanan. How did we learn the Mishnah? Was it Rabbi Yossi said Chazra Shvuah Koma, and Rav Meir says you split it, or maybe it's the other way around? Amalei Lo Yadana. So Rav Nachman said, I'm not sure what the machlokas was. Hilchsmai, what's the halacha? Amalei also Lo Yadana. I don't know. Itmar. We have a member that says like this. Amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Yumi, Amar Rav Nachman said Rabbi Yossi Amar Yachloku. Not like we have it in our Mishnah. Rav Meir says Yachloku, but rather Rabbi Yossi wants Yachloku. V'chein tan Rav Zvid Bar Oshia. Rabbi Yossi Amar Yachloku. Economically, some say that Tani Rav Zvid, that Rav Zvid learned it like this. Rav Oshia, that Rav Zvid said in the name of Rav Oshia. First we had Rabbi Yosef Mechain Rav Zvid Bar Oshia, Rabbi Yosef Machlokas. Now he says son of Rav Zvid, Rav Oshia, Rabbi Yosef Machlokas. So we have all these opinions that say, not like we have it read in our Mishnah on Mem Hamad Aleph, that Rabbi Yossi says Chazra Shvuah Limkoma, and Rav Meir says Yachloku, but rather Rabbi Yossi is one that says Yachloku. Rav Yossi Bar Yumi Ovid Rav Nachman Uvda Yachloku. Even though before we said Rav Nachman wasn't sure Lo Yadana, but the mice at the end, I guess probably because of the predominant opinion that Rabbi Yossi the one said Yachlokus, Rav Nachman Paskin Halacha Yachloku. So if they neither one can make a shvuah, you don't penalize the defendant, but rather you say you split the difference, and they split it. What does that mean, though? So according to what we have now, Rav Meir is the one who says Komo. If neither one can swear, put it back to its place. That's Komo literally means. But what does that mean? Rav Meir says that the way we came out, and Rabbi Yossi says Yachloku. But what does that mean? What is the meaning of that? So in our Mishnah, it just says, and we had another opinion, Yachloku. Okay, Rav Nachman seemed to paskin like Yachloku. He did a Maisa that way, but we have the other opinion in the Mishnah, what does that mean? Where did it go back? Amar Rav Ami, listen to this. Amar Rav Ami, Rav Hossein Shabbat, the Rav Hosseinu who are in bubble, that we'll see that's Rav and Shmuel. Amru, they said, Sinai. It goes back to Sinai, meaning Hashem said, Rashi brings this down. The Sinai, the Shavuos Sinai, Hashem forswore all Bnei Yisrael to keep the Torah mitzvahs, and one of them was don't steal. And Hashem will take care of it. If we can't find out who stole, Rashi in the fourth line and Rashi from the top of the page, who Yifra min HaKofer Mam and Chaver. Hashem will pay back the person who denies money, who steals money from somebody else and denies that he owes him. Avol Bezdin, Bezdin's not obligated, lo l'shvuah, lo l'farm. We can't handle it. In other words, nobody can make a shvuah over here. They're both chashul shvuah. Technically, the defendant has to swear if he's motive mixus, but we don't know. Now, of course, the part that he's motive to, he'll pay that. But the part that he's not motive to, so we had one opinion that you split it, one opinion chazal v'shvusina, meaning we can't deal with it. Bezin can't deal with it. Neither one can make a shvuah. We don't know. We have no other evidence. Therefore, Hashem will take care of it. We rely that Hashem will take care of the person who stole, and somehow the money will be retrieved and give it back to its original owner. So that's one shot. So where does it go back? Rav Ami says, Rav Hossein Shabbat, we'll see that's Rav and Shmuel. Amar Chazal Shul Sinai. Rav Hossein Shabbat Yisrael, who does that refer to? We'll see that's Rav Abba. Amar Chazal Shul Mechuyivla. What happened over here? Ruvain made a claim on Shimon. You owe me $100. Shimon says, I owe you 50. And Shimon's supposed to make a shvua d'oraisa of Moed B'miksa. So he can't because he's a liar. Okay, so Reuven should make the shvua, but Reuven can't either. He's also a known liar. It goes back to the one who was originally Mechuyev Shimon, who's the Moed B'miksa. And if he can't swear, you know what? He's got to pay up. You admit you owe 50, the other 50 you deny. So swear you deny the 50, but you can't. You're a liar. Therefore, he has to pay. So we have two different opinions over here, and we're going to bring proof as to who says what. Amra Papa, Rav Shababal, that's Rav and Shmuel. We have the same Gemara. It brings down aside some Hedin Zion. I'm a base there where he lists whenever we have like a name, who are these guys? That's Rav from. Who is this? Who's this? Rav Shababal refers to Rav and Shmuel. Rav Shababal refers to Rav Abba. So Rav Papa says, Rav Shababal, Rav and Shmuel, Rav Shababal, Rav Abba. Where do we see that they say this? We're not trying to prove here that Rav Shababal is Rav and Shmuel. That we know already. He just says, where do you find that the Rabbi Sen and Bavel, Rav and Shmuel, where do they say this? Again, what do they say? That if neither one can make a shvua, that's it. No contende. We can't deal with this thing. We don't contend it. We can't. Bezin can have no part. Like Rashi said, Bezin cannot be obligated here. They can't force him to make a shvua, and they can't force him to pay. We don't know what to do. We can't resolve it. Leave it as it is and let Hashem take care of it. So where do we see they say Shabbat Rav Shmuel? That's none. That was a mission. In our mission, we had that too. Yisomim should only collect with a shvua. What do we mean by that? Yisomim should only collect with a shvua. What can they swear? Yisomim who don't normally know what their father did or didn't do, they're not obligated. They were children. What were they supposed to know? They can only swear that their father didn't leave any record. He didn't leave a receipt that it was paid. He didn't tell them that it was paid, anything of that sort. Okay, but who are they collecting from? Who are the Yisomim collecting from? Again, these are the Yisomim who are collecting. That means the Yisomim are the children of the Malva. Who are they collecting from? If they're collecting from the Lova himself, not the children of the Lova, but the Lova himself, why should they have to make a shvua? If a father, Reuven, is collecting from Shimon, right? They're both alive. Reuven and Shimon, let's say, are the fathers. They're both collecting alone. If Reuven collects from Shimon, he doesn't make a shvua. I got a star over here. You owe me money. If the Lachem of the Torah is if Shimon denies the whole thing, if he says the loan never took place, and we have proof that it was loan, so we had before, if you say I haven't borrowed, it's like I haven't paid, because if you didn't borrow, you didn't pay, so you're admitting you didn't pay. So if the Malva has proof, then he's got to pay. If he has no proof and the Lova denies the whole thing, so the Kofar Kol doesn't have to make a shvua d'oraisa, only shvua d'Rabbanan. If he's Moed B'miksa, he has to make shvua d'oraisa. So he said over here, who are the children of the Malva collecting from? If they're collecting from the Lova, why should they have to make a shvua? Avu and Shakal below shvua, the father can collect without a shvua. He says, you owe me money, I got a star here. Or admit that you owe me money. He doesn't have to make a shvua. Why should the children have to make a shvua? If they are coming to collect based on their father's, let's say, IOU, whether it's verbal or written down, what's the why should they have to make a shvua? This is what it means. The Yisomim of the Malva collecting from the Yisomim from the Lova, they have to make a shvua that hasn't been paid back, because you shouldn't collect from Yisomim unless you make a shvua. But Rav Shmuel Damar Tavai, here's what Rav Shmuel say this halacha that we're going to determine from there, that they say that Chazul Shvul Shinai. Lo Shanal Shemes Malva B'chai Lova. Listen carefully. If the Malva died while the Lova was still alive, what does that mean? The Yisomim are collecting first trying to collect from the Lova, and then he died, and then they're collecting from the Yisomim of the Lova, so they have to make a shvua. Aval Meis Lova B'chai Malva. Listen carefully. If the Lova died, Shimon died while the Malva was still alive, so Reuben was first going after the children, right? And what happened over there? When you collect from children, from Yisomim, you have to make a shvua. What's the shvua? That your father never paid me. I can swear that your father never paid me. So that's the shvua that the Malva would have to make. Again, Reuben lent money to Shimon. Shimon died. When Shimon died, the Malva, Reuben, is collecting from Shimon's children. And what shvua does he make? Because there's a rule you have to make a shvua even though you have an IOU. I swear that your father never paid me. Okay. That shvua he cannot bequeath to his children. Why? Because the children cannot swear, Rashi explains, children cannot swear that you didn't pay our father. They don't know that for sure. A man could say, I can swear you didn't pay me. But the children cannot swear that you didn't pay our father. What they can swear is, we didn't find any receipts. Our father never told us it was paid. That's not the same shvuah. He can't be morish that shvuah, the shvuah that he has to take, the father, Reuven, while he was alive. He was alive when Shimon died. And he had to make a shvuah to the children that your father never paid me. His children, then when Reuven died, his children cannot take that same shvuah. They can't know that. They can only say, we swear that our father never told us that it was paid. We swear that we didn't find any receipts that it's paid. There was no record that it wasn't paid. Can't make the shvuah. And therefore, he can't make that shvuah. So we say, Yisomim should only collect with the shvuah. And Rav and Shmuel explained, that's only if the Malva died while the Lova was still alive. They should only, because the Malva's children could collect from the Lova. And then when the Lova died, they have to collect from the Lova's children, and they say Yisomim. But if the Lova died after the Malva, Mace Lova b'chai Malva, rather, right? If the Lova died while the Malva was still alive, I might have said it wrong. If the Lova died while the Malva was still alive, that means the Malva had one shvuah to make to the children, and now when he died, his children can't make that same shvuah. Therefore, you don't collect it at all. And Rashi explains, right about even where we are, Rashi says that that's the same shvuah. They can't swear shaparovin. They can't take a shvuah that shaparovin. They can't swear that their father paid. Rav Shmuel shelo yifru. If you can't collect, in other words, the Brisa said, or the Mishnah said, Yisomim, collecting Yisomim only with a shvuah. When is that? That is only when the Malva died, B'chayil while the Lova was still alive. So then the Malva's children should be collecting from the Lova. Then the Lova died, so they collect from the Lova's children with a shvuah. But if the Lova died before the Malva, a Mace Lova before the Malva, then the Malva is chayiv one shvuah to the children, and then when he died, his children can't make the same shvuah. Therefore, they can't collect. Rashi goes on to say, again, that same Rashi, Einar the Morish. Let's take it from the beginning of that Rashi. Einar the Morish, the bun of Rashi, the Divrei Masla, Einar the Morish, the bun of Mammon Shu Mechuyev Alav Shvuah. You can't give that same shvuah. I'm a ho of whom mechuyev shvuah shalom niskabalti. He's mechuyev shvuah. I haven't been paid. They can't swear we haven't been paid. Elo shalom pakadnu abba, that our father did not instruct us that it's been paid. Beinzu shvuah matalas alaviyah. That's not the same shvuah. But gabe yasmei lova, the last one, ein yachom lishba. They can't swear shapar. They can't swear that their father paid it. Come on. Rav Shmuel shelo yifru. Alma ha mechuyev shvuah. So you see here that if you mechuyev to make a shvuah ein yachom lishba. The children of Lova can't swear that their father paid it. They don't know for sure. The children of the Malva can't make the same shvuah that their father was obligated to make. So Rav Shmuel chazu shvuah ve'ein kan lo shvuah v'lo paran. So here's the proof that the Rabbeinu of Bavel, Rav and Shmuel say, if neither one can make a shvuah, like here, the children of the Lova can't make a shvuah, the children of the Malva can't make the same shvuah that their father was obligated to make. Therefore, nobody gets paid. That's the idea. That's the shita of Rabbi Seinu Shebabavel, Rav and Shmuel. Rabbi Seinu Sheberetz Yisrael in the Gemara. Rabbi Seinu Sheberetz Yisrael, beginning of the line there. That's Rav Abba, right? Even though it's plural, but that's refers to Rav Abba. It tells us the famous story of Nascha de Rav Abba. Those of you who attended yeshiva in your early years will remember you always had the sugya of Nascha de Rav Abba that we have in the Zikin Basra, etc. Here we bring it down. Tehu gaver the chot of Nascha mechavrei. Reuven claimed that Shimon had a silver bar in his possession that belonged to Reuven. Reuven grabbed it. He grabbed it. He grabbed it, but there was no Edom there, or there wasn't two Edom there. We'll see. He went and grabbed this bar of silver from Shimon. Oskan Rami, they came for Rami. Reuven and Shimon came for Rami for a din Torah. Yasser Rav Abba Kamei, and Rav Abba was sitting there. They came before Rav Ami, and Rav Abba was sitting there. I see Chad Sada. Then the Mechtav Chatfamine, Shimon brought one witness that says Reuven grabbed it. I saw Reuven grab it from him. What did Reuven claim? Yeah, I grabbed it from him. But the Dichati, it was mine. I grabbed my own thing. Of course, I was entitled to it. It was mine. Ravami, so Ravami said, How should a judge this case? Namely, Zil Shalom. Should we say what? That Reuben should give him back the bar of silver that he took from him? Like a Tresadi, there's no two witnesses over here that he took it from him. Therefore, he could argue, Reuben could say, if I wanted to argue, I could have said that I never took it. I never grabbed it. Since he could have said, I never grabbed it from him, it was always in my possession. I never grabbed it from him. Since he could say, I never grabbed it from him, it was always mine, he could be believed to say, I grabbed my own. So we don't have two Adam against him. Namely, there's no two witnesses against him. Niftere, should we let him off the hook and let Reuben keep the silver bar? But there is one witness that says what? The witness says that Reuben did grab it from Shimon. He sees it from Shimon. So Namelu Zil Ishtaba. So what do we want to tell him? Go swear that you didn't take it? Well, keep it over Michtav Chatfi. Since he said I took it, he already said he admitted that he grabbed it from him. What is he supposed to do? Havalek a Goslin. He's like a Goslin. Not that he's a Goslin really, that he stole it. It might really have been his. But what happened over here? He's like a Goslin. Rashi right over here, even with us, even with the words Agol Sabach, why? Because he can't swear that he didn't take it. In other words, Eid Echad is what does Eid Echad do? Two Adam is Machayev Yumamin. Two Adam say you took it, you took it. Two Adam say you killed, you killed. But if one Eid says you stole the money, you have to swear you didn't steal the money. Over here, one Eid says you grabbed it. What does he have to swear? I didn't grab it. But he admitted that he grabbed it already. He's saying I grabbed it, I grabbed my own. He can't make that shvuah. So if nobody can make a shvuah, how like a Goslin? So he's a Goslin. In other words, he's like a Goslin in the sense. Again, Rashi says, "V'gabi hach shvuah who pasuk a Goslin eitzel kol shvuos." He's like a Goslin, can't make a swear. Here he also can't make a swear. What should he swear? Maybe Rashi says, so let him swear it's mine. That's not the shvuah that he has to make. That's not the shvuah. Nobody is forcing him to make that shvuah, and therefore it's not incumbent upon him to make that shvuah. He can't make. There's no purpose in making the shvuah. Rav Abba, so Rav Abba was sitting there, and he said, "Have a mechuyev shvuah." He's mechuyev to make a shvuah. What? That he didn't grab it, but he did grab it. Ein yochel, but he can't swear that because he already admitted that he did grab it. That's where you find this idea. Whoever has to make a shvuah and he can't, he has to pay. This goes back to the original idea that what's the machlokus over here? What does chaz v'shvulim come? We had a machlokus in Mishnah number 1. If neither one of them can swear because they're both chasha, they're both suspicious, so they're under suspicion of being liars. Neither one of them makes a shvuah. What do you do? Do you say chaz v'shvulim koma or do you say achloku? So we said before, there's one shita, or maybe it's Reosi, Rav Nachman Paskin that way, clear that you split it. The other shita, it's Rav Meir, the way we came out in the Gemara, that chaz v'shvulim goes back to Sinai. What does that mean? So Rav Seinu and Bava, Rav and Shmuel say it goes back to Sinai. You leave it. You can't judge the case. Nobody can make a shvuah. Let God take care of it. According to Rav Seinu Eretz Yisrael, Rav Abba, he says no. If you're mechuyev shvuah and you can't swear, over here, who's mechuyev shvuah? The person who's moda b'mikzas. Just like we find there that he says he's the person who has to Reuven, who has to swear that he didn't take it, but he did take it. And since he can't swear that way, and there's one aid that he grabbed it, he has to pay. The same thing over here. If the guy's motive b'mikzas and he can't make a shvuah because he's a chashash shvuah, so he said, okay, put it on the plaintiff, but the plaintiff can't swear either. So it goes back to its original spot, to the defendant, the person who it's being claimed from. He can't make a shvuah, he has to pay. Amar Rava, so Rava now says in the Gemara, 7 lines from the bottom of the page, Amar Rava, Kavase, or 6 lines, 6 lines, 7 lines. Kavase to Rav Abba Mistaver. It's likely that the halacha is like Rav Abba, meaning that if you can't swear, you got to pay up. The Tanya Rav Ami learned like this. The pasuk by Shomer Sachar says, if Shomer Sachar says, listen, there was an accident over here. I know I'm responsible for negligence or Ganev and Aveda, but there was an accident. It's not my fault. Shvuas Hashem Tia Ben Shneim. They have to swear between them. He has to make a shvuah that he wasn't negligent or it wasn't lost or stolen. V'lo ben hayorshim. Rav Ami says that it's only between them, not between yorshim. If the yorshim of their yorshim don't have to make such a shvuah. Hechidami, what's the case over here? Shvuas Hashem Tia Ben Shneim. Now the pasuk's talking about Shomer Sachar, but we apply kihuzeh Ir Pashias Lamnukan. We had that in Rabbakan, but Mitzvah of Basra, that it's really talking also about a claim and a counterclaim of a loan. Hechidami, what's the case over here that we say the shvuah is between them? That means the malv and the lova, and not between the yorshim. If what happened was this, The guy says, the Orshim say, look, you know what? My father lent some money to your father. You owe me that money. The parents are both dead. You owe me the money. Omer lei, and the other orphan, the orphan of the Lova says, Chamshin Islay, right? $50 he has of yours, you're right? The Chamshin Leslay, you're 50, you're entitled to 50, not to the other 50. In other words, he owes him 50, he doesn't owe him the other 50. Either the other 50 was paid back or the loan was only 50, whatever. He says, I admit to half and half I don't admit. Malihu Maliava, what's the difference? If he's both sure, Rashi, the last Rashi on the page, Malihu Maliavua, Me'achashu Toin Tainus Bari, if the child is sure that your father owes my father $100, why can't he swear? Why can't the child swear? If he's sure that Shu Tain Tainus Bari, he says, no, I know for sure he only owed him 50, not the other 50. Why can't he swear? Moda b'mixas. Elalav, the Omerle must be this case. The Omerle Monala Abba Biarabicha, where let's say Reuben's children said to Shimon's children, I know that your father, I know that your father owed my father $100, right? My father had $100 with you. Omerle and Shimon's children said, Chamishin, I know that he owes 50, but Chamshin lo yadana. He didn't deny the other 50. He says, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Now, Iamrit says the Gemara, Vishlam of Kiai Gavna, if you tell me that the father in a situation like that, who cannot swear, the father says, I know you owe you 50. I don't know about the other 50. Can he swear that he doesn't know the other 50? He says, I don't know. Can't swear if he doesn't know. Iamrit Bishlam of Kiai Gavna Machayev is have to pay. In other words, Mechuyev Shvu of Ein Yachal Ishba. Is it Mishalem, like Rav Abba said? Rav Abba says, if you're Mechuyev Shvu and you can't take the Shvu, you got to pay up. Not like Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel says, Mechuyev Shvu, you can't make a Shvu, let God take care of it, right? If you say, like Rav Abba, if the father had said, the father was alive, and the father, Reuben said, Shimon, Yomi $100, and Shimon said, 50 I know, 50 I don't know, Mechayev, it would have to pay. Says if he would have to pay, so you have a pasuk to tell me, Shvuas Hashem tia bein shneim, and if he can't make a shvua, you have to pay up. So you tell me bein shneim, but not the yorshim. Yorshim don't have to pay. Yorshim don't have to make a shvua. Of ki I gav the right Rashi, top Rashi in the page. Of ki I gav the mechayev shvua mitoch shen yachal ishba daineni yoda kamar l'shalem. The Yorish, if Yorish says, listen, 50, I know 50, I don't know, you can't make the Yorish swear and say if he can't swear he's mechuyev. I understand what the necessary is for the pasuk, why it's necessary for the pasuk. Eliyamer of ki gavna nami potter. If the father's also potter, the father says 50 I know, 50 I don't know. You don't have to swear, you don't have to pay. So Kragabi Yorshalami, what do you need a pasuk tell me? The Yorshim don't have to pay in a case like that. They don't have to make a shvua, and since they can't swear, they don't have to pay. Of course, even the father wouldn't have to pay. Elamai, it must be that a mechuyev shvu b'nei yachal lishba, like where a man says you owe me 100, and the other guy says I admit to 50. The other 50 I don't know about, so he can't take a shvu. Must be that he have to pay. He'd have to pay, but the Yorshim wouldn't have to pay. That's why you need a pasuk for that. So it's likely, like Rav Abba, the mechuyev shvu b'nei yachal lishba mishalem. That's the shita of Rav Abba. And now Rav is saying it's likely that that's the halacha. That's what Rav Abba said. Says the Gemara, well, okay, Rav Shmuel, Hai Shmuel Hashem, my darshan. But what do they do with that? If you learn like Rav Ami, who said that Shmuel Hashem ben Shem and Lo ben Yorshim is coming to tell me that Yorshim don't have to pay, but the father would have to pay. That doesn't go with Rav Shmuel. Rav Shmuel said if the defendant cannot swear for whatever reason, goes back to Sinai. Not that he has to pay. So what's the point of Shvuas Hashem? What is that for? So that's for a drasha we had before. Shimon ben Tarfon. We had this back on Lamed Tesam and Beis. Shimon ben Tarfon Omer Shvuas Hashem tia bein shneim malamet sheshvu chalal shneim. In other words, that not only is the person who's possibly lying responsible because he's making a false shvua, but even the plaintiff who put him in that position, he said, look, he lent the money. He lent money to the scoundrel who's lying now. It's the lender's fault also for dealing with a person who's unscrupulous. That's when Malamed Shechala Sheshvu Chalal Shneim. If you look back, we mentioned that Rashi at the top of Lamed Tesam at Beis. The top Rashi on Lamed Tesam Beis says there, Chalal Shneim Sheshneim the Noshne, both punished. Even the plaintiff, not just the defendant who's lying now, right? Shalodiktik limser mamona biyad neman. He didn't give his money to a person who's trustworthy. He was dealing with a scoundrel, with a mafiosi. and ubali dechil Hashem, he came to Hashem, and it's his fault that he dealt with such a scoundrel. And now the scoundrel is making a false shvua and defaming Hashem's name, defiling Hashem's name. Because of that, the plaintiff is also responsible. In other words, he should have been more careful, not lend your money to someone like that, or at least lend it with Adam or Shtar to make to give yourself more proof that you shouldn't have to come on to make a false shvua. So he uses that drasha for telling me that shvuas mentioned to tell me that both the plaintiff and the defendant are responsible for the lie and for the false shvua that the defendant's taking. Now the Gemara goes on to say other things that Shimon ben Tarfon darshan, like the pasuk Shem Shneim, like it's more of a drush. It's not the pasuk pshat shvushem deim, not bani yorshim. That's like a halacha. Ben Shneim lo bani yorshim. He darshans as shvus ben Shneim that they're both responsible. Another thing that he said, Shimon ben Tarfon Omer, how do you know that a person who's like I guess there's no other way to say it, like a pimp, Rashi says, like a person who obtains, he went and brings women to this philanderer. He goes and obtains women for him. How do you know where's the losa say in the Torah? Not only for the person who's the adulterer or the philanderer, but even for the person who gets women for him. Talmud lomer lo sinaf lo tanif. Not only shouldn't you commit adultery, you shouldn't cause others to commit adultery. But at the beginning of Dvarim, when Moshe is recounting to Bnei Yisrael all their difficult history, he says, "Vatayrognu ba'aleichem." What does it mean, "Vatayrognu" in your tents? What is "Vatayrognu"? Shimon Tarfon Omer, Tartam, you spied, and you shamed in the tent of God. You shamed Hashem by your lies and by your spying, like we're going to have in this week's Parsha Shlach. Aranor, another drasha that he said, Aranahar Gadol Nahar Pros. In Bereshis it said, right? Shame. It lists in the Parsha Bereshis, not the book of Bereshis. In the book of Bereshis, but in the Parsha Bereshis, it lists the four V'nahar Yotzei Me'eden Hashkas Hasagon and Mishami Parad Shemar Arishan Gichon, and lists the four rivers there, the four big rivers near Gan Eden, and it said, or near, out of Eden, Nahar Yotzei Eden. And what are the four? It says Gichon and the other ones. And then the last one, it says, V'hanahar harvi'i hu fras. V'hanahar harfis. The fourth one is the river, is the Euphrates, meaning like that's the smallest one. It lists them in order. So the last one, the fras, is the smallest one. But then in the beginning of Dvarim, it says, Adanahar hagadol nahar pras. Why all of this is Nahar Gadol? From Bereshis, it's mashma that Euphrates is the smallest one. Now it's mashma, it's the biggest one. Why? So Shimon Tarfon Omer, if you get close to oil, you touch somebody who has a lot of oil rubbed on them, you'll also get oil. Meaning to say that really Euphrates was a small river, but since it goes to Eretz Yisrael, it touches Eretz Yisrael, that gives it importance and dignity, and therefore it's called Hanahar Gadol, even though it was really the smallest of the rivers, but being next to Eretz Yisrael gives it. These are all like drushim that Shimon Tarfon said. Probably Gavedina de hidden. The very Shmuel Tana, Eved Melech Kamelech, right? If the king is like Eretz Yisrael is the king, right? The servant of the king, the river next to the king, is also like the king. In other words, if you're close to the king, you're like the king himself. So we said in the Mishnah that there were 5 cases where, even though the Torah says you don't have to swear, but the rabbi said, let the other person swear. In this case, the first one, of course, was the employee, even though the balabayas is the one who is denying the money, he should swear, but we put it on the sachir because the balabayas is busy. And then we said, what else? The nigzal, the one who had something stolen from him when a person came in to take a pledge from him, a nechbal person was injured, or like we've talked about today, sheknegdo chashal shvu, if the other person is suspected of lying, the person who makes shvuah suspected of lying, we put it on the plaintiff on the other one. On his accounting book, on his tablet, whatever. What does that mean? And we said, what's the case there? Where a balabai said to the, you have this common thing, goes to the, let's say, to the makolet owner, and he says, listen, pay my workers $100, okay? Later on, the workers say he never paid us, and the makolet guy says, the chanbani says, yeah, I did pay them. So what do you do in a case like that? So the Tanakama said they both swear and they both collect from the balabayas. He's losing out. Benana said, what do you mean? They're both going to swear? One says he paid me. One says he didn't pay me. One of them's a liar. We don't want to chas v'chalila. We should have a chil Hashem like this, that one of them is for sure lying with a shvua. We don't want that to happen, but rather they both collect from the bais without a shvua. That's Ben Anas's opinion. Now the Gemara says, Tanya, you with me? Tanya, middle of the page on Amid Beis here. Amra Rebbe, Taruch shvua zalami. What do you have to make a shvua like? What is the shvua's business? They're both going to lie. One of them is going to lie. Two people, listen, we're getting into Indian. When two people make a shvua and you know one of them is lying. When two people come and say something, one's got to be a liar. So over here, the workers say the makolet guy, the Chanvani, didn't pay us. The Chanvani says, I did pay. They're each going to make a shvua to the balabais who instructed the Chanvani to pay them, or one of them's for sure lying. So Ben Anna says, no, they collect without we don't want a false shvua over here. They both collect without a shvua. Rebbe said, what do we need the shvua for? Somebody's going to be lying over here. But it's not clear. What does Rebbe hold? Does Rebbe hold, therefore, like Ben Anna, nobody makes a shvua? Or simply that the workers swear to the makolet owner that you didn't pay us, and therefore they collect. They're the ones making a claim. So what is he really saying? Rebbe says, what do we need the shvuas for? Somebody's for sure going to be lying, so we don't want that. But what does he hold? I'll tell you what we hold. Shneim nishbon v'notlan mi balabayis. They both swear like the Tanakama. Kiblamine. Did Rebbe accept it? Rebbe didn't like it. Rebbe sort of objected to two people making a shvua because one of them is going to be lying for sure. But it wasn't clear. Did he go like bananas? Nobody makes a shvua, or did he go like felt that only the workers should swear to the Chanvani owner? And Rav Chia told him no, they both have to swear, even though one of them is going to be lying. So they both swear. Did Rebbe accept it or not? Did he accept it? In other words, did he retract from what he said? Why should both people make a shvua? Did he retract from that or not? Tashma, the Tanya Rebbe Omer, Polin Ishbon Chanvani. So like this, the workers swear to the shopkeeper, to the makolet owner. It's mashma that he only swears that they swear to the Chanvani, and only they're the only ones who make a shvua and they collect from the Chanvani. The Misa, if you say what? That they both swear, so that both the Chanvani takes a shvua to the balabais and the workers swear to the balabais, and they both collect from him with a shvua. If they both collect, he should swear to the balabais, mi boile, just mashma, that he wasn't moda. Amarav, no. Poem nishborn the balabais, mamad Chanvani. They both swear to the balabais. They both swear, they both collect, not like bananas, and not like Rebbe wanted to say, but Rebbe is moda, that what? That Paul means like this. When Rebbe says Paul nishbon the Chanvani, doesn't mean only to the Chanvani and the Chanvani doesn't swear to. No, they both swear to the Balabais. When he says Boim swear to the Chanvani, indicating sort of that the Balabais is out of the picture. No, they swear to the Balabais to collect just like the Chanvani does. But when they swear to the Balabais, they swear in front of the Chanvani in order to embarrass him. Because if the Chanvani did not really pay them, maybe it'll be moda now. In other words, they swear you haven't paid me. They better swear in front of the Chanvani to make sure that somebody will be in so they will be embarrassed. If the Chanvani really paid them, would they want to swear in front of the Chanvani? We didn't have the chutzpah to swear in front of the Chanvani to the Balabayas. We haven't been paid if he really paid them. So that means they both swear to the Balabayas. So you can't tell from there. Now, this brings us to an issue of, and it's mashma that we hold that way, not like Ben Anas wanted to say, that we don't want a false shvur to come to happen over here, and therefore they both collect without a shvur. Not like bananas, but we pass in l'chora that they both have to swear. Now, what happens when you have two Adam or two sets of Adam, one of them who's for sure a liar? This we get into an interesting topic. Itmar, about 7-8 lines down from 10 lines down from the bottom of the page. Itmar the Gemara. Shtekiti Adam achishim zu. Two sets of Adam. Set number one said we'll call them A and B. A claims that Reuben killed Shimon, and B claims Reuben did not kill Shimon. So what happens over here? One of them's a liar, right? We have to determine. But we know over here one group, either A or B, is lying. Amar Rav Huna, can A and B go testify in other cases? When A and B testify against each other, we know either A is liars or B is liars. These are, A is a set of Adam, two Adam, and B is a set of Adam. And they testify against each other. We know for sure one of them is a liar. Can they go both testify in other cases now? Can A testify in another matter that somebody owes money to somebody or some other issue? Can they testify? Reuben, so Rav Huna says, yes, they are not. Neither one of them is a confirmed liar. We know that the two of them together are liars, right? The two of them together are liars. Somebody's a liar among either A is a liar or B is a liar. Again, A and B are sets of Adam. Can they testify? Rav Huna says yes. Rav Chisda says no. One of these two sets of Edom are liars. We can't accept them anywhere else unless we have other proof. You can't accept them. So that's a machlokas Rav Huna Rav Chisda. Okay. What about if you have a case of two lovas, shnei malvin, v'shnei lovin, v'shnei stars, two different cases? You have a malvin, a lova, and a malvin, a lova, two shevet stars. Hainu plutah. That's a machlokas Rav Chisda and Rav Huna. According to, in other words, you have two loans taking place. Two malvas, two lovas, two stars, two separate things. Set A is testifying on A. After we've determined A and B, one of them is for sure a liar because they testified against each other, let's say in a murder case. Can A testify about loan number one and B testify about loan number two? That's machlokas. Rav Huna says, yeah, they're kosher to testify others because we haven't confirmed that neither one of us is a confirmed liar. Together they're liars, but we haven't confirmed either one. A can go testify about a different case and B can go testify about a different case. What about malva, velova, v'shnei sharos? What happens if you have, listen to this, A and B, again, between A and B, one of them is liars, we don't know who. Now we have a malva, right? A malva and a lova, okay? Reuven and Shimon, a different case now, not the murder case, a different case, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven lent money to Shimon twice with two stars, one for $100 and one for $200. A is signed on number one, on the $100 loan, B is signed on number two. We know that between A and B, one of them is a liar, right? But one of them is telling the truth, right? One of them is telling the truth. This gets into this, one of those complicated cases. Who's the liar and who's not? We don't know. But the Malva has two loans outstanding on the Lova, one for $100, one for $200. One is signed by set A, one is signed by set B. What do you do there? Yad Balashtal Tachton. He can collect the smaller one. Why? Because one of them is for sure okay, but we don't know which one. The bigger one or the smaller one? Well, you can always assume it. Maybe it's the smaller one that's kosher. So a matzah mechveil varaya. Since you say over here, maybe the one for $200 is the truthful one, maybe one for the $100 is the truthful one. So you can only collect the smaller one. We don't know which one. Yad Baal Shtar Tachton, he gets the smaller one. So what happens here is that the malva and the lova is the same guy. There's one malva, one lova, but there's two separate loans. One is for 100, one is for 200. One is with set A, one is with set B. We don't know who's telling the truth.
But there's no mochzak
like the
sheker
smaller
here.
one, because even if the truthful one is the $200 one, okay, but we don't know for sure. So you could say the $100 is included in the $200. Either way, is at least $100 that he owes him. Okay, even according to Rav Huna. According to Rav Chisda, no, you can't accept either one. Shnei malvan velova echad. Let's say there were two different malvas. Again, two different loans, but there was one lova, ushnei shtaros, hainu masnisan. That's the same as our Mishnah. That's the same as our Mishnah. We said one of them is for sure lying, right? You have two malvas and one lova, and you have shnei shtaros, and you have two different shtaros over here between the malva and there's one malva. In other words, the lova owes two different people. Malva and there's two different malvas here. He owes both of them money, but one of them is signed by a liar, one signed by a not liar. Well, that's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that's the issue in our Mishnah over here. Do they both swear? Yeah, they could both swear that they owe the money, and just like we said in our Mishnah, but even though one of them is for sure a liar, in our Mishnah, one of them is for sure either the Chanvani is lying or the workers are lying, still they can make a shvuah. So here too, even though one of them is for sure lying, but we have to accept it. We don't know which one, right? Beis lova and a malvech. What happens if one malva with two lovas, ushnei shtaros? So over here, the malva is really, what do you say in a case like this? Rashi in the last three lines on the page, shnei malvech, hotzi malva says shnei shtaros, zuchasum, one sign with A and one sign with B. And he has two, and one malva on two different guys. My Amar Funa Bezeh, Mi Amar says Rashi, Mi Amar Nikiv the Chad Gavru the Maisi Lakaman Lamas the Kikin Lay the Manav Shach B'Shtar Puzzle Bafnei. The malva's coming with one star's puzzle, one signed by A, one signed by B. We know that A and B, between the two of them, one said is a liar. And he's coming with these two stars. So do we say he's coming with a star puzzle? Since he's taking it out on two different lovers, Motzi, Zuba made, each one can come. As we said, Rav Huna said, each one can come and testify alone, even though we know one of them is a liar. Rav Chisda lo mi boile, dafil b'shnei love malva b'shnei love b'shnei stars puzzle kol shkein b'shnei love and malva echad. So that's the question over here. Teku. So we're not sure what he'd hold in this case. In the previous case, where you had what shnei malvin velova echad, Rashi had said before the lines get wide. That's a Mishnah. Shnei malvin otziu ish shtaro alova echad. right? V'achas b'shtei cases alalu, achas chasum v'zu, v'achas v'zu, loki boile, my come rafuna ba, the haina masisim, the kanin ishbam v'notan, the balabayis, they both swear even though one of them's a liar, v'afishan yodin, shechem and sheker, and we can't be mafsid echad. How are you going to tell what this malva should lose out or that malva should lose out? Well, how do I know which one's a liar? They're both entitled to collect, even though we know one of them is signed. One of these two stars are signed by liars. That's the same thing as in our Mishnah there. So that's the interesting machlokas Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. The Gemara is going to ask a kasha on Rav Chisda. Must Rav Huna bar Yehuda. Let's say Adam came to testify about the new moon. So we interrogate the Adam. Is there a new Adam? Is there a new moon or not? So one testified, Gavomas. One aide says, how high did you see? They said, how high did you see the new moon over the horizon? Well, it was 2 ox goads, the sticks that you hit an ox with, 2 ox goads high. He said, 2 ox goads high above the horizon. And one said, no, it's 3 ox goads. That's pretty close to one another. People can't be that exact. Edus and Kayamas, that's good. It's good. It's good. Edus, and they could say testify to the new moon. But let's say one said 3 sticks high and one said 5 sticks high. No, those are not synonymous, or those are not congruous testimony. They're not in sync, and therefore the edus betela umitztar from edus acheres, but they can testify about some other edus. Now, what do we see over here? 2 people are testifying. One says Gimel, one says, hey, we can't accept them. They're contradicting one another. Yet it says they can star for some other edus. My love, latest moment. That even though we know, now there's 2 guys over here, Reuben and Shimon are testifying. One says 3, one says 5. One of them is lying. Therefore, we can't accept it, but they could testify somewhere else. Assuming that means that he could testify on somebody else's, they can both testify to some other case of somebody owes money to somebody. And it's mashma that even though one of them knows a liar, they could be mitzdarf. That goes like Rav Huna and like Rav Chisda. Amarava, no. It doesn't mean mitzdarf and latest acheres. Amarava, hu ve'echad mitzdarf and latest acheres shel rosh chodesh. It means this. One guy said, Reuben comes in and says it's 3 sticks high. Shimon says it's 5 sticks high. Well, we can't accept them. However, it means this. If you have Levi comes along and says 5, so then Shimon said 5 and Levi said 5. 2 against 1, we accept it. That's what he means in the same Rosh Chodesh. The Havilei Trei V'chad. You have 2 saying 5 and 1 saying 3, or vice versa. One does not believe against 2. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that they're liars. One guy says 3, one guy says 5. One of them is a liar. We don't mean that they accept. Rav Chisda will say we don't mean that they can go testify somewhere else, both of them, and we accept their edus there. It just means in this edus, one's 3, one's 5. They're not in sync. Maybe they're not really liars. One guy just thought what he said. It's not like I know Reuben killed Shimon or I know Reuben didn't kill Shimon. Maybe one guy doesn't have such good eyesight. It just means that one of those 2 can be mistar for somebody else to overpower. If he has another guy, if Levi says 3, so it's 3 against 5, then 2 guys say 3 and one guy says 5. Or if 2 guys say 5 and one guy says 3, that's what it means over there. That's how Rav Chisda will answer. But still, it seems that we pass like Rav Huna, that if 2 people, if one set of Adam said Reuben killed Shimon, and one said Reuben definitely did not kill Shimon, even though we know that's either set A or set B as a liar, we don't know which one. But since we don't know which one, they are kosher to testify in other cases. The Mishnah went on to say, he said back on Mem Hey, right? He says to the guy, to the shopkeeper, give me a dinar's worth, $1 worth of fruits, and then he gives him the fruits, and then he says, give me the dinner. So he said over there, he has to swear, the purchaser has to swear that he paid him. So it says like this. Rabbi says the Gemara, Amosai, when do we have this discussion? Bisman Shaper Saburin Umenachem, when the payers are piled high, let's say Paldim Shisrabim, Ushne Norland, they're both claiming that the payers, the purchaser says I paid for them already and they're mine, and the seller says, no, I just set them aside, they're ready to be picked up, but you haven't paid yet. But if he threw him over into his box or his bag or whatever, in other words, if he already had him in his possession, then there's a whole machlokus is only if the payers are ready in a pile in neither one's rishus. Then they said the same thing with the money. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda said, no, we don't assume that he doesn't make a shvuah because he wouldn't have given him the payers unless he actually paid. Then we had the same machlokas with the money changer. Almost shechani tainli. Why do you have to give both cases? Both cases, we have the Tanakama saying he has to make a shvuah, and Rabbi Yehuda says he doesn't make a shvuah because he wouldn't have paid him unless you already gave him the money. So it says, so why do you have to give the cases both in the case of the payros and in the case of the money? The if you tell him case of the money, The Hachkamer, but there the Rabbanan say that it's likely that he gave him the payers ready. Mishum the payer avidi the mirkavi. Fruits go bad. So it's obvious. So maybe the seller there wanted to give him the fruits right away, gave it to him already. But, take it now before the stuff goes bad. In 5 minutes, it'll start going bad. So he gave him the payers already. Maybe it would take 2 hours to load the payers, whatever it was. He would give him the payers right away. And therefore, it's likely that he gave him the payers before he didn't pay. Therefore, when he says, you didn't pay me yet, the guy has to make a shvur that he paid. Even the Mirkavi, Lamashali, since they go bad, he's not going to leave him around. He'd rather give him to him, put in his rishus. Let him take him home then and find that the half of them are rotten. Avamo, still low Mirkavi. Money usually doesn't go bad. So, Ema, Modele Rav Yehuda, that he doesn't make a shvur because it's unlikely that the money changer would have given him change before he actually took the dollar. Be it, and if you told me only the second case, Bahakamar, their Rav Yehuda said, but maybe in the case of the fruits, he's motive to the rabbis that maybe the guy would give him the fruits before he would have given the money, and therefore the purchaser has to swear that he paid. Sricha, therefore you need both cases. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem, we'll finish the parak, and hopefully we'll get to finish the parak. And on Thursday, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll finish another parak and finish the Masechta Bezrat Hashem. We have time to finish. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Michael and Kurt, I'll see you at 7. We're having a minyan at 7 here for those who live nearby and can make
Yes, Hashem.
yeah.